to Dr. deGrasse Tyson.
Thank you for that warm welcome. It's my first time ever at Purdue. I know you guys produce half of the astronaut corps here on campus. But a standing ovation before I begin, that's a little excessive. I want to earn that, all right? So if I've earned it, it's okay at the end, all right? We'll do that. Just empty my pockets here. It's fun. There's too much junk. No, it's a stage, so I want to be nimble up here. Pull this out. Did we debug this before? And there, almost. Let's try that. Yeah. It was actually, forgive my ignorance, but it was actually quite by accident, or perhaps the force was in the air, that I ended up wearing black and gold today. I wish I could take credit for it, but I can't. It was by accident. All right. We're gonna have. Stuff happens in the universe all the time. You'd think it would like give me a break or something, but it doesn't. It just keeps going and going and going. And at the request of the committee that invited me here, we're going to spend the next hour talking about stuff that just happened in the universe, right? I mean, it happened over the last several months. And that's what we're going to do. And then we'll go Q&A. And that's my favorite part of, because I pretty much know what I'm going to say here, but I'd like to hear what you have to say. So we're going to have a vibrant Q&A at the end, and we're good. I'm told there's some tornadoes nearby. That would be interesting if they visited us. Is that a common thing, just tornadoes just showing up?
Yeah, it's Indiana.
Life in the Midwest, I guess, right? Often talks such as these are sort of loosely veiled commercials for like a book the speaker wrote, and this is no exception to that. No, actually, there's nothing in any book I've written that we're going to talk about today. I don't even like giving book talks because I write the book so I don't have to talk about the book. That's why I write the books. I'm done there, let me move on. If you have me in person, we should talk about things that don't appear anywhere in print. So that's why I want it to be special between us. But that being said, I just did this, and I'm like really proud of it. It's a lecture series on all the stuff we don't know in the universe. Unsolved mysteries. Usually you buy stuff and you say, oh, now I learned that, and now I learned this. So this is actually pretty easy to record. It's like, before the Big Bang, no idea. Okay? Center of a black hole, we're dividing by 0 there. That's bad. So, this build up, I mean, you get context, but I just call that to your attention. How many, this is like a strong engineering school, right? Well, who in here is like not a scientist or engineer? Raise your hand. Okay, well, thank you for coming. Thank you. By the way, when I asked that, There's a woman over here, right here. Like, where were you? Okay. I heard you, yes. Not alone here. We're going to make this work, all right? Tonight is the harvest moon. How's that for current events, right? The harvest moon is simply the nearest full moon to the fall equinox. It can happen before it or just after it, but it's the nearest full moon. We call that the harvest moon. There is nothing special about this moon. It is not bigger, it's not funner, it's not more gravity, nothing. Okay? Just because somebody writes songs about it doesn't make it astronomically significant, right? Every full moon in the year has a name. Okay? They all got names, okay? My favorite, I do have a favorite, but the full moon in June. Someone in the audience has lycanthropic tendencies. I'll look that one up later. So the moon rises and stays very low in the sky before it sets. In June, it's the lowest full moon of the year. So it doesn't get very high, and the moonlight passes through atmospheric dust and renders it with an amber hue. And that June full moon is what we call the honey moon. That's where that moon got its name. Is that cool? Oh, that's cool. Well, how old are you? You're 7? Well, welcome! Everyone is clapping because they wish they were as smart as you coming in here. There's blue, you've heard maybe of blue moons, but every moon's got a name. And so there'll be a lot written about it, just chillax on that one. All right? And check this out, ready? The news about the harvest moon has already begun. Harvest Moon 2013. How to see the full moon. Where's the moon? It's a fucking full moon. I'll read it to you. Skywatchers, get ready for a special sight tonight. With the autumnal equinox set to fall to September 22nd, the harvest moon will be in full bloom. Doesn't say anything about it. It's not big. Like I said, there's nothing special about it. Just chill. Just saying. Okay. There's a comet on its way. People are going to write about it. Chillax on that one too, all right? Comet Ison, which is named after the International Scientific Optical Network. That's a network of Russia and around the world that looks for moving fuzzy things in the sky, finds them. If it's a comet, they'll call it a comet. This one, they call it Comet Ison because the two people who discovered it, nobody can pronounce their names. Comet Nevsky Novichonok. A Belarus guy and a Russian guy. Anyhow, this comet has an eccentricity of 1, which means it is on a parabolic orbit, which means it may have never come around the sun ever in its entire life before. It's a spanking brand new comet discovered a year ago, and it's going to have a close approach to us, to Earth. It's going to come within 40 million miles of Earth the day after Christmas. So people are talking about a Christmas comet in the sky. It's like, it's wait. Is that something you get excited about? That smudge in the middle of the picture? Okay, well, someone just said it's Doctor Who. Ma'am, you mean it's the Doctor. Doctor Who is the name of the show. I'm just saying. Don't mess with me up here. You don't know who you're dealing with. So you read about Comet Ison, and then there are people who say it's going to hit Earth, and Planet Nibiru is hiding behind it, and there'll be cults, and so this goes on all the time. By the way, we discover dozens of comets every year. This is not special that a new comet was discovered. So just relax on that. Now I did the math on this. All of y'all, most of y'all, are about the right age to remember Pluto. Yeah, okay, I just want, okay? Today, September 19th, 2013, Pluto is still not a planet, all right? Anyone here upset by that?
Yes.
It's still not a planet. You're upset? Okay, I just want to say get over it. Pluto, we demoted, I was an accessory to this crime. I drove the getaway. I didn't pull the trigger. I didn't hold the gun. I had a getaway car in this. We were the first public institution in New York to publicly reassociate Pluto with other newly discovered brethren in the outer solar system, the Kuiper belt of comets. And Pluto's mostly ice. Pluto, its orbit, there's 6 moons in the solar system bigger than Pluto. Pluto is more than half of its volume is made of ice. So that if it came near the sun as Earth is, the heat from the sun would evaporate the ice and it would grow a tail. That's no kind of behavior for a planet. I'm just saying. Okay, so Pluto was discovered in the 1930s. I just have to show you this. A Brit, a 10-year-old girl in England, named Pluto. She had just learned Roman gods, and Pluto was sort of the god of the underworld, and they imagined the distant solar system is out there. So she recommended Pluto, and she was very well connected. Like her father was head of the Cambridge Library, and they're all connected. So it got named Pluto. An American could have never named it Pluto. Because at the time, this being advertised. Pluto water. Relief for constipation. When nature won't, Pluto will. So no American is thinking, I'm constipated. I will name the new cosmic object after my constipation. What's that? Yeah. French Lick Springs, Indiana. So you guys came up with Pluto water. I didn't know that, all right? This is an angry, so we do this back in New York, and I'm the meanie for having been head of the project that reassigned Pluto, and then I get all this hate mail from 3rd graders. Here's one. I'll read it to you. Dear scientist, what do you call Pluto if it's not a planet anymore? If you make it a planet again, then all the science books will be right. Do people live on Pluto? If there are people who live there, then they won't exist. Why can't Pluto If it's small, it doesn't mean it doesn't have to be a planet anymore. Some people like Pluto. And if it doesn't exist, then they don't have a favorite planet. Please write back, but not in cursive because I can't read in cursive. Public enemy. So my favorite comic, this one is like, it's funny and sad at the same time. Ready? That's sad.
See Pluto, victim of downsizing.
Can you guys see way over here in the corner? You guys got it? Okay. How old are you? You're 10. Wow. Is it past your bedtime? Past my bedtime. Thanks for coming. Pluto. Look at the shoes. He's got like real, you know. Anyhow, what else is going on? The universe continues to expand at 68 kilometers per second per megaparsec. Just in case you were wondering what the universe was doing. Every second, the universe expands 68 kilometers for every megaparsec it is in size. A megaparsec is a million parsecs, and a parsec is a little more than 3 light years. So, just so you know, we got top people monitoring this. Right? All right, let's get to some current events. What's current earlier, you know, we discovered the Higgs boson, right?
Woo!
When I say we got people in this, right? And it's sometimes been called the God particle. It's the most, if you had to be a particle, this is the one to be, right? Because the Higgs field grants mass to particles. If you had that power, that's good. You're in charge of the party, right? And just to give a sense of how this works, think of a party in Los Angeles, okay? Where no one cares if you're smart, they just care if you're famous, all right? So, in such a party, if no one knows you, you could just walk through the party unhindered by people's attention. You have a very low party mass, okay? You can just move without any resistance to motion. But if you're famous, you know, everyone knows you, you're A-lister, you're Tom Cruise or Hugh Jackman, and you enter the party, people crowd around you, and they can't move very quickly. And if they do move, it's sluggish. And so they have a high party mass. And mass, one of the measures of mass is your inertia, your resistance to be motion, your resistance to stop moving. So this particle, it was discovered, it may get the Nobel Prize in a month. Well, they might wait a couple of years just to make sure it's a good discovery, but it's up there, okay? Our understanding of the continuing to unfold. And this is the particle accelerator that did it, CERN, which I am told in French, it's spelled CERN, but in English it's the European Center for Nuclear Research. But in French it's like the Centre for European Research Nucléaire. And that's how you get CERN, okay? But this is like the biggest machine ever built, like ever. And it is probing the structure of matter to the deepest levels ever. So just to say, we got the Higgs boson, we got that, okay? So, in particle physics, there are a lot of particles. That would be a problem if we needed a theory for every particle. But they all derive from just a few basic tenets of particle physics. So that's why we think we're really on the right track there, probing the nature of nature. And we dropped a SUV-sized rover on Mars earlier. Yeah. It goes 6-wheeling around the planet. This is a science laboratory, and it can dig holes in rocks and It's like having 5 scientists there doing work at the same time, all asking questions about the Mars terrain, the geology, the topography. Is there water? Is there ever water? What are the minerals? And so that is still going on. And it'll continue to go on. It's working beautifully. But one of the things I thought was cool was one day they turned their cameras up to the sun and they watched an eclipse of Mars's moon Phobos against the light of the sun. Oh, sorry. I thought I removed this slide.
It's a
It
conspiracy.
was the first ever photo that was censored by NASA. The first ever photo taken from the surface of Mars by
McDonald's
Curiosity.
side. Give it some time.
You weren't supposed to see this slide. There we go. So that's the sun. And this is Phobos, one of Mars's moons. Mars has 2 moons, and they're not really, they're like, I can't even call them, they're like rocks. That's what they are. And it's not that I'm in a demotion mode. They look like Idaho potatoes. They're not large enough to be spheres. And there's Phobos and Deimos, and this is Phobos moving across the surface of the sun. So Earth is not the only place that has eclipses, except we have better eclipses, because our moon is exactly the same size as the sun. So when it moves in front, it completely covers the sun. Okay? I'm just saying. Then we get very pretty eclipses. This goes in front of the sun, nothing happens. There's no corona, nothing. Looks like a Dunkin' Donut. Here's something cool. You ready for this? Bet you didn't know this one. You're not even ready for this. You're not ready. You ready? Okay, ready? Planet Krypton was found. Constellation Corvus, the Crow, visible from the southern hemisphere, is 27.1 light years away. The name of the star is LHS 2520. It's a red dwarf star. LHS stands for Leuchten Half-Second Catalog if you're amateur astronomy fluent. And here are its coordinates on the sky if you want to find it. It is 12 hours, 10 minutes, 5.6 seconds in right of section. Epic 2000. This is like amateur astronomy fluency here, okay? A declination, epic 15 degrees, 4 minutes, 15 seconds. Planet Krypton. Now, you know how I know planet Krypton was found? Because I found it, okay? So, there it is. This is the actual star, and planet Krypton is orbiting, well, that star is real. That's the real part. But Krypton, if it existed, would be orbiting that star. And you don't believe me that I found it. Okay, so, okay. Neil deGrasse Tyson finds Krypton for Superman, okay? Who didn't believe me? So you didn't believe me. You didn't, how old are you? You're 9, okay. So can you read that? Yeah. I found Krypton. Superman came and asked, I gotta help the dude out, right? He wants to find his whole plan. I'm not gonna say no. Of course I'm gonna help him out. Look at all he's done for us. And I live in Metropolis, you know? So, he came to visit me at the Hayden Planetarium, and there he is.
That is awesome.
Now, so some people saw this and said, boy, they gave you an awesome vest. I said, no, that's my vest.
You wear the vest in the college.
That's my vest. So, no, it was a sad day, actually, because he witnesses his own planet So at the end, Superman like needed a hug. You know, he's bent over. It was a sad day because the light from his home planet finally reached Earth. He got here through a wormhole. If you remember the story, he's launched as a baby, as an infant, like Moses style, in a basket. He arrives on Earth, an infant. Okay? So he beat the light beam. And the only way you can do that is through a wormhole. So he does that. Now, 27 years later, he's eternally in his late 20s. I was told by the people who draw him. And so there you have it. And that's what he said. He said, I line up all the telescopes in the world to find this planet. And he says, all over the world, that must have been a huge effort. Please, after you've done for the world, all you've done for the world, the whole astrophysics community felt it was the least we could do. So there you go. And that's not really cool cosmic news. So I just slipped this in here because I thought maybe it would be kind of fun. And I'm speaking to the illustrator, and I said, if it makes no difference to you, do you think you could take a couple of pounds off my... He said, Dr. Tyson, this is the world of the comics. Everyone looks good. So I came out, you know, where am I? Yeah, that's right. All right, back to the real universe. Just a few things. You need to be reminded of this every now and then. Earth wants to kill you. To think of Earth as, oh, Earth is perfect for us. Oh, it's a haven. It's Earth. It's beautiful. Earth wants to kill you. Earthquakes, volcanoes, tsunamis, hurricanes, tornadoes. One headed our way. Drought. We just got over a drought. Okay? Floods. Disease. Earth would just as soon have all of us dead. That's just Earth. The universe wants to kill you too. Let's back up now. So, do you realize 97% of all life, of all species that ever lived on Earth are now extinct? You ever just think about that? Right? I'm just saying. Just saying. Universe wants to kill you. Yeah.
Giant crater.
This isn't, Earth didn't do this, the universe did. Arizona, famous for its holes in the ground, this is one of them. What's the other famous hole? The Grand Canyon, of course. I was just there a few days ago, and here. And you know, when you visit them close to one another, you get to compare. So I look out at the Grand Canyon. That's grand. Yeah. I'm down with that. Okay? But then I go to this thing, which is nearly a mile across. You could sink and bury a 60-story building from its bottom to the rim. I look at the Grand Canyon, and it took like 70 million years to carve the Grand Canyon. And then I come here, and it took 10 seconds to make this crater. So I'm thinking, I'm going with the crater on this one, right? You want to talk about what sort of, you know. So this is a reminder. By how big was the object that made that hole is about the size of this stage if you can make it a whole sphere. Make this whole sphere, and then it turns into a hole that big in the ground. This is called meteor crater, okay? In my field, we name things as we see them. We don't get all complicated on you. You ever have a conversation with a geologist? Well, that's Wolverclane's feldspar. Take the rock.
That's great.
And, biologists are no better. Chemists are no better. What do biologists, I'm talking to you, yes. What do biologists call the most important molecule in the human body? Okay? Deoxyribonucleic acid. That's 9 syllables worth of effort there. In astrophysics, what do we call the beginning of space-time, the universe, and everything? Big Bang. What do we call big red stars? Red giants. There's a red spot on Jupiter. We call that Jupiter's red spot. I'm just saying. The sun has spots. We call those
Sunspots.
All right. That's why all the astronomers of the world can communicate with the public. Our and not only that, you take our vocabulary, you like it. You're using our vocabulary. There was pulsar brand watches and quasar brand televisions and car names are using cosmic. There's like the Saturn Car Company, or once was the Saturn Car Company. There's the Chevy Nova, except the Nova is a star that just blew up. I don't know if they knew that. I know if they knew that. In the old days, there was one of the last of the land yachts, the Galaxy 500. There's the Chevy. Is it a Chevy Ion? I'll take that one. We got that. So, moon glow, bath beads, celestial seasonings, tea, bars, candy bars, Milky Way candy. There's no candy bar called deoxyribonucleic acid. Nobody will come near the damn thing. Wow, that's a huge diversion. I didn't even go that far. Sometimes an asteroid breaks into multiple pieces, and all those pieces come in and hit in a row. And this is it's a chain of craters, and we call that a crater chain. Okay? And what's interesting here is that each one of those asteroid pieces is exactly behind the other. And when the first one hits, the other one would hit in the same place, except the object rotates between the hits. And that's why the crater chain is extended. That's the rotation of, this is one of the moons of, I forgot which moon, it's one of the moons, I think, of Jupiter. But anyhow, you've got the rotation of the moon while the object is coming in to hit, and that spreads it out. Now, this is, okay, we can talk about these, but there's some that you don't survive, right? This is an artist's rendering of a really bad day on Earth. Don Davis is the artist here, an artist for NASA, did really beautiful things for them to capture some idea of what's going on. The outer rim is heated from its passage through the atmosphere, and it plunges in. This would be an extinction level event if that happened. What else we got here? Here's another rendering. This one would be like the one that took out the dinosaurs 65 million years ago. The size of that asteroid was about the size of Mount Everest, right? About 6 miles across. That's about what this is as portrayed. Now, I once showed this to a high school, this picture. And the front, in high school, in an auditorium, who sits in the front row? The nerds, the smart kids, right? Okay, and the back row is like kids who read the newspaper who would rather be someone else. From the front row, someone raised their hand to Dr. Tyson. I said, yes. Is that an actual photograph?
Wow.
There comes a time as an educator When you just want to give up. Then I thought, where am I going to take this question? So I said, yes. In fact, the pterodactyl had a digital camera, and the chip was still in the camera. There's an asteroid with our name on it. It's called Apophis, named for the Egyptian god of darkness and evil. We named it that after we discovered that its orbital trajectory will intersect that of the Earth. In fact, it intersects the Earth's orbit I'm trying to count. Will you let me count? Sometimes I need my fingers, okay? I think it's every 7 years. I have to check on that. But anyhow, Apophis is about, let me see if I have a map here. Yeah, so Apophis could hit us in 2036. But if we know it's going to hit us, we can try to do something about it, like deflect it. And we have the know-how to deflect it. It's good engineering, good aerospace engineering, good astrophysics. And here's what you do. If I'm the asteroid and this microphone is the ship, you bring the ship near the asteroid. Then you park it there. And they're going to want to attract to one another. But you don't let that happen. You just fire little rockets to prevent the two from coming together. And when you do that, the act of firing retro rockets has the effect of slowly tugging Apophis out of harm's way. If you get to it early enough, the tiniest little nudge will have it miss Earth entirely. We know how to do this. We just don't have a funded project. You see Earth in the distance on the right? Yeah. There you go. Apophis. This is, if Apophis hits us, it will likely hit us in 2036 in the Pacific Ocean, 400 kilometers due west of Santa Monica. So here's a model of that impact, and there it goes, and there are 50-foot tidal waves sloshing onto the entire west coast of North America. And Hawaii gets some of it as well. This is the peak height. So the 17.2 meters, that's about 5 stories tall. That's right at Santa Monica, right there. And will be the highest tide. Now here's what happens. This asteroid is about the size of the Rose Bowl. All right? It'll fit nicely in the Rose Bowl. That's big. Not as big as the one that took out the dinosaurs, but big enough to be another bad day on Earth. That thing plunges into the ocean. It'll reach a depth of 2 or 3 miles, approximately. There it will explode, cavity in the ocean, to a width of about 3 miles. That sets the first tsunami into motion. But then there's the matter of the hole in the ocean. If you were a hole in the ocean, what would you do next? You would collapse the walls of the hole to fill it in. So here comes the walls collapsing in, it sloshes against itself, rises high into the sky, possibly even to the stratosphere, falls back down, cavitates the ocean again. And this repeats 40 times. So what this means is about once every minute or so. So it means the first tsunami wave can only get but so far inland because it's got to be dragged back out to become the second tsunami wave. So you can calculate, based on the speed of the tsunami and how quickly the next tsunami needs your water, how far in the tsunami will reach. It'll reach about 1/4 mile inland. So you could set up a velvet rope the entire west coast of North America and just set up seats to watch it. Behind the rope.
That's horrible.
Nobody has to die. this stuff. We predicted 2 people will die. Only 2. You know who they are? I'll tell you. The first person to die is the stupid surfer. Go ahead, man. I'm gonna surf. Okay, here's how the surfer will die. He'll ride in on the tsunami, and then the tsunami will take him back out. But by the way, all the homes, the $1 million Malibu homes, will be brought inland about a quarter mile, and then brought back out, and then they'll come back again in a slightly different shape. If you're surfing this, you are mixed in with all the debris that is ablating the west coast of North America. It's hammering it clean with all the stuff that we built. Okay, so we'll lose a surfer. We're also going to lose, you know what I'm talking about, the weatherman, who's always trying to get the camera guy closer to the surf. I'm moving a little closer. You see the surf crashing on line? Dead surfer, dead cameraman. That's it. Apophis. Now, I'd rather not have to set up a rope. I'd rather deflect the thing. And when you have scientists and engineers in your midst, we tend to come up with solutions to problems before they happen, rather than survival solutions when it's too late. Okay? That's the conversation. The engineer stands next to whoever else. The asteroid's coming. The whoever else says, run! Buy water and toilet paper, or whatever people buy when they need supplies. And the engineer says, how can I deflect that? That's why it's good to have you all out there, okay? All you engineer folks, all right? Woo! Save the planet. There's another asteroid. This one is called asteroid 2012 DA14. It had a close approach to Earth in February of this year. How close? This puppy came between us. Between us.
And the moon?
Oh, someone said between us and the moon? No, this one came closer than that. Yes. This one dipped below our communication satellites. That pissed me off. Oh, you don't come there.
Watch out, we got a badass over here.
Okay, so the moon's orbit, I don't know if you can see from the back row, the moon's orbit is the big one that's incomplete, the outer shell. The circle that's around Earth, which is in the middle of this diagram, those are our communication satellites. And so the trajectory of this asteroid was between us and our geosynchronous satellites. Between us and your direct TV signal. Now, I'm all ready to talk about this on the news. Because it's coming, we know when the close approach is, it's February 15th. I'm all ready to do the morning Today show, the Good Morning America, and the evening news. I'm all ready to do this. But no, what happens at 4:30 in the morning, I get a phone call from NBC News. Oh, I'm sorry, I have data on this, here it is. It came 17,200 miles. The geosynchronous satellites are 22,000 miles above our surface. That's 50 meters across, was going 5 miles per second. That's a near miss, or near hit. And we've hit by stuff this size. We were hit by a 50-meter asteroid back in 1908. It left this. It knocked down trees. This was in Siberia. We didn't even photograph this until we could get into the depth of those forests. There's no helicopters or trains into the depths of these places. So this was an air blast that flattened and incinerated 10,000 square kilometers. That's in the 20th century. So here we go. So it's February 15th, and my phone rings. It's 4:30 in the morning. It's NBC News. They said, we want you to come on this morning's program and talk about the asteroid that hit Russia today. And I said, what? No, it's just going to dip below no. And they sent me a link. Here's the link. The same day, February 15th, a front-facing camera in Chelyabinsk, Russia, in the Ural Mountains. Okay? Can you see a tiny little dot of light in the center of the sky? That is an asteroid penetrating Earth's atmosphere, being rendered aglow, and it is traveling 10 miles per second. And if you're going that fast and you hit our atmosphere, that's like hitting a brick wall. You explode in our atmosphere, and this is exactly what happens. Let's see if I can run the tape. Can I do that? No. Don't make me come out of my PowerPoint presentation and find this. Don't make me do that.
Do it.
All right, I'm gonna go find it. Yeah, I gotta go find this. Give me a second. Ooh. This thing's wrong again. Let's see. So hang on.
Actually finding the video.
Meteor, here we go. Okay. Can I slide that puppy over? There we go. Okay. Yes. Okay, ready? Front-facing cameras. Front-facing camera in Russia. Thank you. Somebody banking a turn with his car, and here we go. That happened the same day as the other one coming near us. And I said, holy shoot. Because what I worried about was, many asteroids, they've been around so long and they've felt the gravity of other objects in the solar system that the tidal forces can break them apart. And if one is coming near us, and we're getting other asteroids hitting us, it could mean that we're in store for an entire shower, a meteor, a chain ready to hit the Earth, and this could be just the first sign. And so we quickly checked the trajectory and what time it was and what part of the sky it was coming from, and it's completely unrelated to the other one that was going to dip below your DirecTV satellite. And so this looks like just a pretty thing to look at, right? Oh, it's just a bright thing in the sky. This was several times brighter than the sun. It's the morning in this small town called Chelyabinsk. So what do people do? They see this bright light in the window. It's like a Steven Spielbergian E.T. light that beams in the window. And so what do people do? They run to the window. What was that? They didn't remember their physics 101. That light travels faster than sound. So a couple of minutes later, bang! The shock wave of that explosion cracks every window in the town and levels walls. 1,000 people needed Band-Aids because of cuts to their faces by glass. That's just the first week of physics. If I see a bright light, I'm not going to the window. I ain't that curious. So this is the Band-Aid meteor strike, right? Band-Aid. Now, I got some data on it. I have to go back into the PowerPoint here. Let's do that. Back in. Okay. So here's some data on it. Ready? So the Russian meteor, it was 17 meters across, so what's that in feet? It's like 50 feet across, 10,000 ton speed, 40,000 miles per hour. That's about 10 miles in a second. 50 kilotons of energy was deposited into our atmosphere over a matter of seconds. The bomb in Hiroshima was 20 kilotons. So this is 25 times the energy of the Hiroshima bomb in World War II. Why did anyone survive it? Because it detonated 20 miles up, hitting the atmosphere as though it were a brick wall to it. At 20 miles up, that energy dilutes into a huge volume of space, so that by the time it hit the ground, all it did was shatter windows. But if that hit at the same altitude as the Hiroshima bomb, because we had people calculate that altitude. They said, we don't want the bomb to hit the ground, because then half the energy of the bomb makes a crater. This is military calculation. They want to maximize the kill radius. So you find an altitude where the explosion can maximize the damage to the ground in area. So, had this happened at that altitude, no one would have survived. We would have had to come upon that city later on, a truck driving through, and they'd see every single building leveled and no survivors. So this is a shot across our bow, a very dangerous meteor that only ended up requiring band-aids. So somebody needs to pay attention to this. We got the data from an international monitoring system that looks for nuclear blasts. It doubles up as a device that can look for asteroid impacts. And, ways of monitoring whether anyone is disobeying the test ban treaty. I think this slide is up twice. Yeah, okay. So I like this one. One dinosaur saying to the other, all I'm saying is now is the time to develop the technology to deflect an asteroid. My favorite poster ever is right here. Asteroids.
That's great.
Talk to me. I don't need space. Why are we dealing in this backup problems here? Meanwhile, asteroids coming and aiming right for this. But they say, no, I don't need space. I'm just gonna, this is all I'm gonna do. Just gonna look down. Where are we here? I'm talking too much. You all okay? You going somewhere else tonight, or you're hanging here?
Yeah.
Oh, the folks who came late up in the upper seats there. Does anyone like the upper deck? A couple of people in the upper deck. Thanks for coming. But you got here late, because you could have been down here. So, no. But I know you're up there. I can see. What happened a couple of days ago? Launched 1977 on a 5-year mission. Voyager was launched at a fortuitous time when the major planets of the solar system were in a particular configuration that would allow Voyager to come by like Jupiter, slingshot, and then head for Saturn. And then go by Saturn and slingshot, gain speed, head towards Uranus. And then Neptune. We were able to do this grand planetary tour with like a 3-cushion pool shot, And each time gaining is now one of only 5, but at the time it was, I guess, the 4th spacecraft to have enough energy to leave the solar system forever. Forever. On a mission to gather data and take measurements. This was not recognized by the Star Trek people. The very first Star Trek movie, it's called Star Trek the Movie. One made, the show got canceled, and then there was a big underground support for the crew and the storytelling, and then it was resurrected as a movie, and then multiple movies, and then they brought back a whole other series. So I have clips from that, not movie clips, but stills. So in that movie, they come upon something called V'ger. And V'ger had gathered all the information in the universe and came back. This is many centuries in the future. And for its creator. And it knew its creator was somewhere on Earth. And it was called V'ger. Okay, so there it is. They come upon it. It's in the center of this huge structure that it had built around itself because it's acquiring all the knowledge there is in the universe. It calls itself V'ger. And this is the hot alien who's pointing out where V'ger is. He's always a hot alien, right? This one happens to be bald hot alien. It's the tradition of science fiction film. The whole website's given unto sci-fi women. She's pointing out to them, and the guy on the left will ultimately stay behind. And bones. They're gazing upon what the alien is pointing out. And then Kirk walks up to the craft. And he sees a sign on the side. And he notices that there's corrosion on the OYA. So that's why it thought its name was V'ger. But then I thought, if it gathered all the knowledge of the universe, I think it would know its name was Voyager. Wouldn't you think? I would think. A little bit of corrosion wouldn't get in your way of knowledge. By the way, this is Voyager 6. How wishful we were back then. There were only 2 Voyagers. But this is fiction, and they imagined 6 Voyagers that we continue to explore the known universe. By the way, I cut as an homage, my only homage, don't get any ideas about it. My only homage is I cut my sideburns to match Star Trek sideburns. Spock ears or Klingon, just that's all. So why was Voyager in the news? It basically left the solar system a few days ago. All right. Now it had long ago passed the orbit of Neptune and Pluto, if you must. All right. But it went beyond the Kuiper Belt, and it went to a point in space that went beyond the influence of the sun's magnetic field, which is powerful and extensive. And once you step beyond that influence, then you can no longer, it's getting weaker and weaker. And it reaches a point where you can no longer distinguish the sun's magnetic field from the magnetic field of the galaxy itself. At that point, where's the sun? Well, you have to be told where it is, but you're feeling the galaxy. At that moment, Voyager crossed over into interstellar space. Just as we knew it would, we just didn't know exactly when. There's another Voyager, Voyager 2, identical to the first. That'll cross it a little later. It's on a slower trajectory out of the solar system. On the side of Voyager is a record. Okay, for those of you under 30, in the old days, we would put a groove in a circular platter, and then take a diamond tip, insert it in the groove, vibrate the diamond tip, and create acoustical signals from that, and that's how we recorded our music. Okay? So, because we knew this was leaving the solar system, this golden record, The Sounds of Earth, was created by a team led by Carl Sagan and his then wife, Anne Julian. And basically, she was the creative director of this. By the way, the thing on the right is the lid to that record. And the thing on the right has cryptograms that will help some intelligent species figure out first how to listen to the sounds, but also identify where in the galaxy we came from. That's that little starburst there that you see. That's distances and directions to well-known pulsars in the galaxy. So an alien finding this would then know exactly our return address. Which is odd because most of us would not give our return address to a stranger of our own species. So it's a audacious to go to an alien and say, here we are. There's a model of the hydrogen atom on the bottom right. So it's cryptograms. If the alien is halfway smart, they ought to be able to figure it out. But the sounds of Earth, it contains the heartbeat of an unborn infant. It contains greetings in 59 languages. It contains music drawn from all the cultures of the earth. The full gamut from Bach and Beethoven to Chuck Berry, right? And so this would be a way for an alien, if they have a sense of hearing, to learn what kinds of sounds we make here on Earth. It was a beautiful and ambitious project. At the time, Saturday Night Live parodied it.
Oh no.
So they show aliens pick up the craft, and then they send a message back to Earth. And so the NASA scientists get the message, and they open it up, and the message says, "Send more Chuck Berry." Chuck Berry playing Johnny Be Good. He was surely, doing it. Now, before this, there was a spacecraft before Voyager called Pioneer, which were the actual two spacecraft to be given enough energy to leave the solar system. And so they had an earlier version of this attempt to communicate with aliens. This is the famous Pioneer plaque. And there's that same starburst. That's the same coordinate system to find out where we are. The upper left is the same model of the hydrogen atom. And the dish is the size of the Pioneer dish relative to the two humanoids there. And our solar system is down here at the bottom. And notice the craft is coming from a line from the third rock from the sun. Now I'm thinking if aliens wanted to find this star system, they wouldn't stop at us, because this identifies Pluto. But does not identify the other 6 moons that are bigger than it. So they would say, this can't be it, because clearly there's a significant object out there. Let's keep looking. I saw another comment where the aliens capture this craft, and the aliens are in tuxedos and a bow tie, and one says to the other, hey, they look just like us, except they don't wear any clothes. There's more here. Some people want to go to Mars. The Dutch. And something called Mars One. It's a Dutch entrepreneur, Bas Lansdorp. He wants to create a permanent human colony of 4 people, then every 2 years add 4 people, and these are people who will never come back. It's a one-way colony. Like in the old days where people went from sort of Europe to the New World and didn't come back, like the Mayflower. That's the concept here. I'm skeptical, because the Mayflower, when it landed, they could breathe the air, right? That's all. By the way, they said, who's with us? Who wants to go on a one-way trip? The line went around the block. There'll be no shortage of people who would take a one-way trip to Mars. So that's in the news. And what would it look like? You'd have these HAB modules. Now, why someone would do this, I don't know. I wouldn't mind going for a vacation. But to say, okay, you know, it'd be cool to be born on Mars, first person born on Mars. That'd be cool. That'd be a famous person, for sure. But still, I hope, you know, maybe it'll work. They have sponsors. It's a not-for-profit organization, and they're gathering sponsors. And so, but these are donations. It's not a business model. If they do it, it'll be like a stunt, really. It's not going to be, yes, this is a regular thing that's going to happen all the time, because we can make money, like the Dutch made with the Dutch East India Trading Company, right? They found out you can trade with the New World. They made money doing it, and it thrived. Unless there are aliens on Mars with whom they can trade, I'm skeptical. Just have a few more slides here. I've been going so long. We have a spacecraft at Saturn called Cassini. Saturn is my favorite planet. Earth is my favorite planet. Saturn is my second favorite planet. Okay? It's been orbiting there since like 2005. Can I tell you a quick Today Show story? May I?
Yeah.
Okay. So, it's 2004 maybe? Or 5, I forgot which. Cassini pulls into orbit around Saturn. Old-timers in the audience may remember that in the old days, our spacecraft would do flybys. You wait all these years till you came up on the planet, and then you go by in 4 hours, and then you have to take all the data you could right at that moment, because it was still headed to another place. Now we can hang out and take leisurely data. Cassini is in orbit around Saturn. It had just pulled into orbit. The Today Show with Matt Lauer and Katie Couric invited me on to talk about it. I said on the phone, there's no data yet. It's just, what do we know? Just come in and we'll talk about it. I said, fine. So I go in. And they said, oh, this is great. What are the fun? I said, it's going to study the magnetic field, the rings, the moon, blah, blah. Then Matt Lauer decided to put on his hard-hitting questioner hat. And he said, Dr. Tyson, this is a $3 billion mission. With all the problems we have here on Earth, how can any of us justify this expenditure? Now, if I'm going to be stumped on national television, it is not going to be by Matt Lauer. I felt that vibe, that skepticism vibe. Now, I'm friends with Matt Lauer. My point about that comment is there are news reporters that were like in Vietnam are getting shot at. There are news reporters who dangle off of cliffs to get news stories. There are news reporters who actually seen danger and felt death. Not Matt Lauer. Okay, so I'm there, and I know where his question is going, and I said, okay, Tyson, quick calculation. Let's do this faster than he can utter his question. And he says, how can we justify it? And I said, pause. This is a 13-year mission. You've got to divide $3 billion across 13 years. What does that come to? It comes to like $300 million a year, something like that. Do you realize Americans spend more on lip balm than the cost of this mission? worried that like I disturbed the morning. I didn't know. The producer comes in. I said, "Is everything okay?" He said, "Oh, it was great. We want you back." I said, "Oh, okay. Should I just worry because like the camera shook and no, that's good." Okay, so what I didn't know, and maybe you all know that, is they piped the sound of the Today Show out in the street where all the people have gathered looking through the window. They could hear the show. I didn't know this. So I exit the door. And then I get noticed by the crowd and they said, everyone's holding up their chapsticks saying, "We want to go to Saturn!"
Oh, yes.
Start the chapstick movement. Why do I forget when I am when I tell you all the stories? Oh, okay. So Saturn, just you go to the North Pole of Saturn. You know what we find there? A hexagon. A hexagon. 6-sided geometric shape. Turning North Pole of Saturn. We have no idea where this came from. Who ordered this? We don't know. Clouds are not supposed to make hexagons. It is a mystery. And the image on the right should be a GIF. Hope I didn't lose the GIF. Did I lose the GIF? Okay, if this GIF worked, this thing turns. It's kind of cool, but it turns, right? It's just a GIF, so it's only got like 8 images to it. So we actually have a live motion rotation of this storm. And in study, people have actually been able to duplicate it in the laboratory, and you can actually show sustained sort of eddy shapes that can rim a hexagonal form if the spin rate is right and the viscosity is right and all the things are right. But no one predicted this, so it remains a mystery. The universe brims with mystery. Cassini also reprised the pale blue dot. The first pale blue dot was Voyager. Voyager passed Neptune, turned around, looked back, saw Earth, took a picture. And there was this pixel. We normally think of Earth as large and significant, and we live here. Of course it's important. From space, we're barely a pixel. Carl Sagan wrote a whole book with that title, Pale Blue Dot. That pale blue dot size was repeated with Cassini just a couple of months ago. I will end with an image of that pale blue dot. And I will read from the book of Sagan. Allow me to set up the image. First of all, when you go to Saturn and you go behind the planet, Saturn eclipses the sun. So
awesome.
From the backside of Saturn, it's dark. The sun is on the other side, completely eclipsed. And upon doing so, if I can go total blackout for this, please, if I may. Thank you. We all get dark adapted. So in July of this year, Carolyn Porco, a friend and colleague of mine, head of the imaging team at Saturn, took this image.
That's awesome.
The dot of light in the bottom right quadrant is Earth. Earth. Carl Sagan, 1997. From this distant vantage point, the Earth might not seem of any particular interest, but for us, it's different. Consider again that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you've ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. Their aggregate of joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there on a mote of dust. The earth is a very small stage in a vast cosmic arena. Think of the rivers of blood spilled by all those generals and emperors so that in glory and triumph they could become the momentary masters of a fraction of a dot. Think of the endless cruelties visited by the inhabitants of one corner of this planet on the scarcely distinguishable inhabitants of some other corner. How frequent their misunderstandings, how eager they are to kill one another, how fervent their hatreds, our posturings, our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe are challenged by this point of pale light. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity and all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. The Earth is the only world known so far to harbor life. There's nowhere else, at least in the near future, to which our species could migrate. Visit, yes. Settle, not yet. Like it or not, for the moment, the Earth is where we make our stand. It has been said that astronomy is a humbling and character-building experience. There's perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image of our tiny world. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish